Welcome to Spark Sessions. I'm your host, Sonya Locke, and this girl is on fire. Today's guest has built a leadership career in one of the most high-stake industries in the world. Kathleen Boyle is the chair and CEO of Verify, a global leader in supply performance and supply chain risk management solutions, specializing in support of aerospace and defense industries, serving more than 7,000 supplier locations across over 40 countries. Her journey began in 1991 as an intern at Verify. She climbed through operations, quality, compliance, customer satisfaction, and business development before rising to the very top. She is also a founding board member of Women in Defense Greater Los Angeles and a defense industry sector chief for the FBI IntraGuard program, protecting our nation's critical infrastructure. Kathleen's rise is a lesson in grit, expertise, and the power of staying the course. She is proof that when you build your spark through experience and integrity, you can lead industries that keep the world running. So, Kathleen, thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, you are a powerhouse, and I mean, everything that you have accomplished, rising up to the top in what is an extremely male-dominated industry. I mean, you're an inspiration to so many others, and I cannot wait to unpack your story. So cheers and thank you.
To be here. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Sonya. So I love to always start first with what we call roots to rise, because every spark begins somewhere within us, you know, with our childhood or where we grew up or how we started our path. But I don't know, walk us back through, kind of tell us a little bit about you and what started that whole spark.
Well, the spark for me with Verify started actually when I was a child. So my father founded the business. He was an immigrant from Ireland. He came over to the U.S. in the 60s when they were bringing engineers over during the Vietnam War.
Wow.
He landed in Philadelphia, you know, a city of freedom, and was just so delighted and thrilled to be, you know, in the United States. And his program was canceled and they were going to send him back. So very quickly, he used his own, you know, grit and resilience to land on a program. Ultimately was sent down to St. Augustine, Florida for 90 days. And he left 3 years later with a wife and a child, my older brother, Michael, and came out to the US and was working in the aerospace and defense industry here in the LA area. I'm working in quality and making sure that product was built correctly, and had a business idea for essentially a quality assurance company. But he's an engineer. He's not a business person. He partnered with individual. They started a company, didn't work out, and then he went out on his own. My mom was a nurse, and raising then ultimately 3 small children, ultimately a 4th. And if I wanted to see my dad, I would go to work with him on the weekends as a child. And I just really looked up to him, and I loved spending time with him. And the day after I graduated from high school, I was given the opportunity, that's my internship, to come in and learn the finance and accounting and doing administrative support. So I worked there on holidays and summers. And then when I finished up at UCLA, then they said, oh, you know, we need somebody to come in for 6 months. And now we need somebody to go to New Jersey for 2 years. And so I just kept saying yes and yes. And part of it was maybe that familial duty and obligation, but it was also because, you know, I loved being involved in the family business. I loved being able to spend time with my dad. And I loved the opportunity to take on new challenges and to grow outside of my comfort zone. So that's kind of how things began for me with Verify. And here I am 30 years later, and I'm still there.
Oh, you're still there and running it amazingly. And that's such a great story. What part of Ireland is your family from?
So my mom's also Irish as well, but she's raised in Florida. My dad was born in County Cork and raised in Monaghan, and then Galway and Dublin. And now he actually still, he lives in Ireland part of the year and outside of Dublin. And my mom's family is from Roscommon and Belfast.
Oh, my technology business is based in Ireland.
Oh, okay.
So I go out there a lot, and I love Ireland. It's one of my favorite countries, and
Beautiful.
the people are just so
the best.
Amazing, hardworking, loyal.
Yes.
That's what I always see. It's like it's a great country, and obviously a great way for you to have your start. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's still also the foundation of building a company that your father created
Mhm.
and carrying that legacy. How did that kind of shape your leadership style and working through all the different areas of your company?
So I would say there's an aspect of the company and then just the way that I was raised, whether or not it was as a child or in high school, in activities and leadership. It was always encouraged to suit up and show up. Just be there and be present, and volunteer to help. And how can one be of assist? So whether or not it's volunteering in the community, whether or not it is, as I said, if it's a sport or an activity or an academic pursuit, and then translating into work. So whether or not it was me coaching high school cheerleading or ultimately being at Verify, it was being present, suiting up, showing up, and saying, how can I do more? How can I learn more? Because then the opportunities will present themselves, and ultimately they have for me. I always said yes, and I was given opportunities to go places and do things and take on new challenges and really stretch myself in some cases outside of my comfort zone. So it's given me the opportunity to essentially work in every department, every aspect of the business.
And you're working across the table from all the big boys, and I'm sure you were probably the only female at the table many times walking through. How did I guess your background and your father and everything you've learned from learning all those different aspects help guide you?
So one of the examples, particularly when you're talking about sort of a gender imbalance dynamic, is when I went out to the Philadelphia area. I went out to South Jersey, and I was invited, or as my husband liked to say, was sent off to go open up a regional office in support of a new major aerospace customer. We had earned a contract, and pretty much every single one of my customer contacts, engineering and program management, they were all gentlemen. They all were probably mid to late 40s through early 60s, getting to retire in some cases. And they looked at me like I was a girl, in my early 20s, from California. And what's wrong with my age? What's wrong with my gender? What's wrong with California? And what I didn't realize is there was a bit of a stereotype in terms of the West Coast being deemed as kind of flaky. So I learned very early that I needed to prove myself, and I needed to make sure, I was the earliest to arrive, the last to leave, always available. So ultimately, when I returned back to California and I finished that assignment, they all said, you exceeded our expectations. We didn't think you could handle this, but you proved us wrong. And that was a great compliment. And it definitely was a moment that I look back on. I think that was transformational for me. I guess, there is maybe a perception of difference, in gender or maybe where you come from. But all of those things can be overcome with hard work and with delivering and meeting or exceeding the objective.
Oh, that's excellent. And tell me a little bit about, or I guess explain more what Verify does.
So the company that my dad founded in 1976 was really a bit more, maybe more narrow in scope than we are now. It was originally addressing an unmet need in our industry, which is delivering supplier quality support as an alternative to our customers or the government performing supplier surveillance, whether or not it's quality or delivery, inspections or audits out in the supply chain. So instead of putting someone on a plane, they could take an experienced professional within our organization, and we could deploy them for a day, a week, a month, part-time, full-time. And then that evolved probably in the mid to late 90s, where we were really just trying to get closer to our customers and not just being seen as like a rent-a-rep and doing a very narrow specific task. So we started investing in rudimentary platforms and basically kind of early software to manage our field force and to be able to capture information that our individuals were performing their tasking out in the supply chain to measure quality, on-time delivery. And these data points aggregated together really became powerful. So we're able to report back to our customers and the industry in terms of the health and the well-being of their supply chains. And that has evolved into managing supplier performance, and then in more recent years, leaning into supply chain risk management and mitigation. So shortly before COVID, we started to lean into the concept of supply chain risk management. And really our goal at that time was to help wake up in our industry, the 737 supply chain. Boeing had to halt that supply chain or that production for some time due to significant aircraft accidents. And we said, we want to help these suppliers wake up. They've been dormant. And literally those conversations were going at an industry conference right around the corner here in Beverly Hills. And the end of that week was Friday the 13th of March, 2020. And then the world shut down.
Oh, wow.
So we ourselves had to pivot as an organization and really change how we did our business. But it made us double down and lean into the fact that this particular type of tasking could be beneficial, not just for one customer, not just for one program, but it could be industry agnostic and help others as well.
That's amazing. I mean, what a big pivot. And were you the leader of the helm at this point, right?
Yes. Yeah. I was. That was in 2020, and I took on this role in mid 2013.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big pivot to have to go through the 2020. What did that experience teach you? What did that push you on your leadership?
So we, I guess for better or worse, have had multiple experience of overcoming challenge and difficulty. And part of it is the nature of our industry. So sometimes there would be geopolitical or macroeconomic events that would maybe change something significant, where all of a sudden maybe a significant program would be canceled or a customer would need to move in a different direction, and it could negatively impact us. However, we've always found ways to overcome that. So those are really maybe exogenous shocks that wasn't of our doing, but you just have to kind of dig deep and respond. We've also had business crisis where we failed to manage a technology project that, quite frankly, almost killed our company. And that's maybe something that we did to ourselves. But we learned to overcome that as well. And we came out the other side. So when COVID hit, and I'm talking to friends that are running other businesses, and they're like, we've never seen anything like this before. I'm like, we've been through some difficult times, and we know that we can overcome. So in the case of COVID, overnight, we had to take people working at different offices, and we never had like a hybrid or a remote work policy. And we had to find ways for our corporate personnel to be able to work from their kitchen table, deploy laptops, and how can they do their jobs? Now, our folks out in the field working in defense, it was deemed essential. So Some of them were able to continue performing their tasking. In other cases, they were not. We were not able to perform the tasking, the billable hours. So that was difficult. But we also took the opportunity to say, hey, there's certain activity that can no longer be done in the supply chain. We have these empty offices. Why don't we take the facilities and take some of the tasking and bring it inside where we have a cleared facility, where we have technology infrastructure that allows some of this highly sensitive work to be done in a secure environment that can't be done on someone's kitchen table. So we were able to take those empty offices and turn them into an alternative solution to support our customers. We've continued to this day building that activity over the last 5 years. We now have folks obviously back at work, and we brought folks back to work part-time. And then now we do have a hybrid environment for our corporate employees. But for those folks doing some of that sensitive information, those workstations have been permanently converted to perform a new service and a new solution that we just were kind of listening to our customers. What do you need in these new times, and how can we help?
With all the transitions, I mean, you have led your company through some really difficult times. When did you realize that you had a leadership superpower, and what is it, that gave you the courage to kind of just constantly reimagine and push forward?
I don't think I've ever realized that. That's the first time anybody's asked me a question along those lines. Perhaps being here today and having the opportunity to reflect on my career, I don't think I've ever really done that. I don't feel like there's a moment where there's an opportunity to be proud of anything. I feel just grateful. I feel like I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunities that I've had and continue to have, to be able to serve my team, to serve and support our industry. creating opportunities to collaborate across industry, being involved in organizations, and then also in the community and in philanthropy and service. I feel like perhaps there's aspects of what I've done within my company that's given me the opportunity to serve others outside of the company and in the community as well.
No, and you have a definite superpower. I mean, all that you've accomplished, not just with your company, but I mean, to have that foresight to continue to protect your company, protect your employees, make changes and pivot on the dime, as well as like what you've done with the community. I think it's amazing. I don't want to get into also talking about the Women in Defense too, because I know you founded that as well, which is a wonderful way of giving back. But let's talk about like some of those burns, like the challenges that you had to go through. You know, when were you most tested, I guess, in your career or in your personal life, and where you felt like you were the most tested, that you had to kind of come through that fire and it made you stronger?
Well, I'd say kind of looking back on some of the early career challenges where I witnessed, perhaps even before I was an employee of Verify, you know, as a child, and witnessing some of the challenges that would go on in industry and how it impacted the company. Seeing that, you know, the stress and the strain that maybe it put on my dad, and then being there firsthand, where all of a sudden a program gets canceled and we have to figure out what we're going to do with our teams and try to create work opportunities for everyone. That business crisis that we had in 2015 with a less than ideal deployment of a technology program, that was really, really painful. And what was painful for me is I was involved more peripherally, you know, leading the company, but not wanting to step on anybody's toes. And I feel like where I went wrong and what I've learned from is that maybe a superpower is I tend to ask a lot of questions. And it maybe goes back to my early career when people say, oh, you know, that young lady from California is, if you ask people questions, they're more likely to give you the gift of an answer, of a response. Maybe it's sharing their perspective. Maybe it's, you know, being the smartest person in the room. But in doing so, you're taking those data points and that information that gives one the ability to have a greater perspective and maybe have a better sense of what's going on. So with that technology challenge is I wasn't part of the steering committee. I asked some questions. I solicited some advice and guidance from MBA classmates from outside of our company, but that were in that business, and where I should have pressed more. I should have kind of realized that in my mind, I don't know exactly what's going on. In my heart and my gut, I felt something was awry. So I had perhaps the Catholic guilt inside of me, like I could have done more, but I'm never going to let that happen again. And be confident that it's not just what we do and how we do it, but having that confidence to continue to ask the questions, to go to that next layer and to dig deeper, to be part of that solution and not be necessarily afraid of stepping on folks' toes or making anyone feel uncomfortable.
So taking leadership of this very highly complex organization that you run across suppliers, countries, and all of this stuff. Tell me about the challenges that you faced becoming a leader and how you overcame those and gave yourself the confidence to be able to lead.
When I was given the opportunity to take on the role of CEO, I was pregnant with my second daughter. So first daughter was about 6 years old, and I thought, oh, I'm just going to be one of those working moms with an only child. And God ultimately blessed us to have a second daughter who completed our family. But it was becoming public knowledge when I was given the opportunity to take on that CEO role. And I think there was some question like, can she handle it? She's having a baby. She's over 40. These are all things that, you know, when we as women, we feel like we've come a long way, we've worked so hard, you know, fake it till you make it. But for me, I go with a breathe it till you believe it. So it's kind of it's an alternative to that. I just feel like it's a little bit more positive, and it's taking a challenge and it's kind of feeding and nourishing it. So that way something positive comes out the other side. So for better or worse, and I do not recommend this. That with both of my daughters, I really didn't take time off. So I was on maternity leave for 5 weeks, but would continue to work from home or bring, early in the morning, my baby in with the infant seat under the desk and leave before people arrive. That is what not to do. It's a lesson in what not to do. But I felt like, I needed to kind of prove myself. And what I learned from that is it was fine, but it wasn't necessary. I've got a really great team, and I have a leadership style which is empowering other folks. And really, that wasn't necessary. But what it did teach me is that women can do it all, just not all at once.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we're selective in what we're doing and when we're choosing to do it. So that way we can be successful professionally, but also personally and in all of the other areas of our lives.
No, I think that's so very important. And we give ourselves some grace and stuff like that and don't feel like we have to overcompensate, owning for who we are. And as a leader, I mean, you're a leader not just with your company, which is amazing, but with these other organizations as well. What has that kind of taught you? Like with, you are the you're the Defense Industry Sector Chief for the FBI's InfraGard program. What is that? And how did you get that role?
So that it's a good question. So I think it's being successful in Verify and folks seeing the value of what we do and how we help the supply chain, particularly in aerospace and defense. I have a colleague that had that role, and he was taking on a new opportunity. And this is outside of Verify, but just somebody I know from industry and was moving to the East Coast. And he identified me. So it's not something that you'd necessarily, apply for. It's kind of, you need to be selected and vetted in advance. And then, of course, go through that ultimate vetting process. And I didn't know anything about the InfraGard. And it's a public-private partnership where industry supports the FBI, and they have these various critical infrastructure sectors. So there's aerospace and defense, and I'm actually involved in manufacturing as well, education, healthcare, energy. They have religious, so synagogues and churches. So it's people from within all aspects of society where we work together as a partnership where we identify threats and we're given tools to help take back from the InfraGard from FBI to help kind of feed and nourish our industries and address any concerns as well. So it's a very collaborative, cross-industry opportunity to serve our population and serve our government in a meaningful but different way. I myself, I'm not from a military family, but I just feel like it's a gift and a blessing to be able to serve our community and our nation in a unique and different way.
No, and it's such a mission critical thing to have experts like you and really caring about the industry and caring about our critical infrastructure and stuff. So thank you for giving all that back. Now, you talked about having 2 kids and running a company, and you're doing that. And then you founded the Women in Defense Board of Greater Los Angeles, which we had another member that was in our Face in Defense. And, it's a rarity to be a woman in that industry. It's less than 24% of the workforce. So
still?
yes.
Okay.
And much less leaders. But what I guess what made you go and give back like that to so much to help others?
It's a great question because it's something I resisted. So I was about 15 years into my career when a female colleague from the same industry, but a different type of a service business. And she said, this is a really great organization. There is not a Women in Defense chapter in LA, Orange County, Ventura, Santa Barbara, Riverside. There's nothing in like the greater Los Angeles area. So she said, we need to start one. And she tapped me and said, hey, we want you to be involved. And I said, I don't do women things in our industry because we're already underrepresented. I don't want to be part of like a marginalized sewing circle or a club. I want to be with the broader industry. And then I looked into the mission, and really the concept is advancing the opportunities for women in aerospace, defense, national security. And it's not just for women, it's for women and our male allies that are looking to advance opportunities for women. I said, okay, I can get behind that. At the time, I have one daughter, and I said, I'll be involved, but I've got a child, and I have a job, and I have all these other things that I'm involved with. And they said, we want you to be the president. We want you to be the founding. I said, well, I'm too busy. But as I was once told, if you want something done, give it to a busy person because she'll find a way. And I took on that role. And the day after our chapter was launched is actually when I found out that I was expecting our second daughter. So when we had our inaugural, we called it a white party. It's kind of a service to the flag award. And everyone was attired in white clothing. I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter. And hey, we were able to get things launched and be successful. I'm still involved. Part of my goal in mentoring and giving back is being involved, being helpful, but passing the torch on to the next generation and the next generation. I'm still around. I'm still here to help, not here to tell people the way we used to do it or the way it could be done. And it's been really fantastic. Actually, this year, our chapter was just honored with the Chapter of Excellence. So out of 25 some odd chapters, the woman, Paulina Todd, who is our current president, who I brought into the organization. And I'm so delighted and proud of her and all of us that we were honored with that Chapter of Excellence just this year. So it's something that I look back on that I resisted, but yet what I found is we all support each other. And that I think is something quite unique in aerospace that I haven't heard from friends that work in other industries. So me saying, I don't know if this is for me, here I am, all these years later, 13, 14 years later, I'm still involved. And it's a really tremendous organization.
Well, I'm totally not surprised that it received a Chapter of Excellence. I mean, it seems like everything you put your finger on, you kind of go to the 100th degree.
It's always a team effort. You can't do anything alone.
So I think that this leads perfectly to kind of our burning question because of everything that you are doing and lifting others up and mentoring and providing pathways and stuff like that for the future generations. But how do we, as leaders, how do we raise a generation of women who are not afraid of big industries, of big responsibilities and big stakes? I mean, you talked a little bit about yourself, like, feeling like you had to do it all, but how do we get that word out to the rest and help them rise up?
Mm-hmm. I would say there's a place for you. There's a place for you. I love the quote from Shirley Chisholm. She's the first African-American woman who was in the United States Congress. And she said once upon a time that if you're not offered a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to that suit up, show up,
yes,
and just come and say, how can I help? And don't be afraid, and particularly industries that may be perceived as more male dominated, that one might say, I'm not an aviator, or I'm not an engineer, or I don't want to go into a manufacturing environment that may be perceived to be more stereotypically male. That you could be a woman who is an aviator or an engineer or want to be involved in manufacturing. You can do any of those jobs and any of those roles. But in our industry, whether or not it's legal, whether or not it's business development, whether or not it's program management or operations or quality or compliance, those are all roles that can be done by men or women, anyone. And going back to my experience with women in defense, when I have shared with friends who work in other industries how collaborative we are, whether or not it was in Women in Defense or in some of the other industry organizations that I'm involved with, the women are always there to help each other out.
Yes.
There is a collaborative approach. There is a genuine concern about how are you doing? How's your company doing? How can I help? How are you doing? And I think there's less of a competitiveness, at least that's what I've observed in my experience with our industry and women, that it feels a little bit more competitive with the gentlemen. And maybe there's other industries where I have female friends that feels maybe it's a little more competitive. Some people use the word catty. But for us, I think it's like we generally want to help each other out and to advance one another. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to come And if you're not invited in, say, push the door open, or just show up and say, how can I help? How can I be involved? And take advantage of every opportunity that's afforded to you. And if not, make one for yourself.
I think that's perfect. And organizations where women have led and opened up these type of opportunities, they have shown statistically that they usually are more successful, more women rise up, and we're seeing that there's creating pathways for women to really rise into the role of leadership. I mean, we're still very underrepresented. We're still, 6% of the Fortune 500 CEOs are women. And there's 24%, I think, in the supply chain. So the more we can do to create these pathways and to create these programs, I think really will help rise the next generation and make them feel like they are capable.
Absolutely. And for me, earlier in my career, once we had the opportunity verified to get involved in the Aerospace Industries Association, at that time, the head of that organization was a female who previously was the head of the FAA. And there was Lockheed Martin's CEO, Marilyn Houston. She's extraordinary. Phoebe Novakovic, she's the CEO of General Dynamics. Now we have Kathy Warden. She's the CEO of Northrop Grumman. We have Amy Gowder. She is the CEO of GE Aerospace Defense and Government Systems. These are all extraordinary women that are very educated. They're very hardworking, but they're human beings. And I've witnessed them from afar and now from near, leading with empathy and leading with interest and being firm, but also having a warmth about them that is a model that I choose to follow. It makes me feel like it's okay to be me, and that, I can be that, mama bear or mother lioness or whatever it may be, but I can still be warm, and I can be human, and I can be a woman as well.
I think that's come up on so many of our different podcasts with our different women leaders and stuff. And I always say my greatest strength is some of my feminine qualities as a CEO. It's empathy, it's collaboration, it's, under listening to different perspectives and making a bigger table. So I think that's what makes you a great leader. So thank you. So, I mean, you seem to always be pushing yourself, like you said, whether it's taking your baby into the office so that you cannot take a break, running your company, running all these amazing organizations and boards and serving. And we haven't even talked onto your philanthropic. Why can I not talk today? But we have not even talked about your philanthropic duties and stuff. So tell me a little bit about Casa Teresa, and what you do with that. And,
okay, sure.
And
so it was instilled in me and in our family, actually, from my mother, who, although she worked, she was a nurse when we were younger, but she's always served the community. That's very important to her. And she has been involved in supporting Casa Teresa for almost the entire history. Casa Teresa, similar to Verify, both turning 50 in 2026. So we have good family friends that launched that organization. It is a shelter for pregnant women in crisis, coming from very, very difficult situations. Typically domestic violence, abuse, human trafficking, addiction, really, really difficult situations. They have nowhere to go, nowhere to turn. So Casa Teresa takes these women in and gives them an opportunity to heal, to learn skills. It could be finishing their GED, or it could be getting started in college. It could be learning vocational or trade skills. So that way, should they choose to keep their children, or maybe they have other children that they currently don't have possession of, they may be with another family member or in the system, to be able to break the cycle of dependence on the system, addiction, abuse, and to be able to support themselves and ultimately their families, which is really extraordinary. So I had a front row seat to that through my mom. And then as an adult, was invited to join their board. So I served on the board of directors for 10 years, and I was a 2-time board chair. I'm now on the advisor board, which is less of a hands-on role, but also in parallel gave me the opportunity for 6 years. My older daughter, Fallon, and I, through our National Charity League chapter, from her 7th through 12th grade year, Casa Teresa was one of their philanthropies that we could volunteer at. So I was able to pass a torch on to her to bring a third generation in to be able to give back and to really learn from these ladies who've been through so much. So it's always like, you always hear, the more you do, I get more back as a volunteer. I get my batteries charged. I feel a greater sense of purpose in, being a mom or being a CEO or all my other duties and obligation when serving other people. That really nourishes me, and that, fills my heart and gives me strength. But to be able to do that alongside my daughter has been a privilege and has been a blessing. And we'll see. I've got one more to be joining that organization soon, and hopefully have the opportunity to do the same with her.
Well, that is wonderful. But one of the things we always ask our guests is about fueling their flame. How do you, I guess, pour more into yourself right now? You take care of so many others. You lead so many others. You have a very large heart, I can tell, that is just spreading out. How do you keep your fire burning?
Well, I think it's that being busy, and then overcoming a challenge or helping someone in need, or winning a program or delighting a customer. Those are all elements that nourish me. I probably could do a better job of maybe returning to some practices or rituals that would be maybe beneficial to me physically, mentally, emotionally. Exercise needs to be brought back. Once upon a time, the pre-dawn Peloton or the run or the walk or whatever it may be, that should probably be something that I do a bit more of. So this will keep me accountable. If I say it, then I will do it. I could probably do a better job in that department. I guess upon reflection.
Oh, well, you do so much for others. Don't beat yourself up too much about the Peloton and stuff. So the most important part of Spark Sessions is always passing the torch. And I know, like I said, you've mentored others. You have, your work in the community is amazing. And then you have 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. What are you hoping that or to teach them? What would you say to them and giving them advice?
I've had the opportunity actually to start this conversation. My oldest daughter is a freshman in college. She's been gone for exactly 2 months. I haven't seen her. She's coming back for Thanksgiving soon.
Where does she go to school? Sorry.
She goes to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Okay,
where she's
so
an
she's very
agricultural
smart.
Communications major, which I didn't know was a thing. Apparently, it's the only college in California which offers this major. But what I would say is that I feel confident that she's listening to me, because one of the messages I have had for her and for my younger daughter, who's a 6th grader, is do what you want to do. Follow your passion. You can do anything. Go to whatever school you want to go to. Study whatever you want to study. Look to be happy and healthy in whatever career you choose. You don't need to pick something that I think you should choose. I went to college already. I chose my career. I've already had my turn. Now it's your turn. And I want you to be happy, and I want you to be satisfied, and I want you to be fulfilled. And I will be happy, and I will be proud, and I will be delighted if you have all of those things. So you follow your true North Star, and I'm right here behind you, cheering you on along the way. And I just can't be more thrilled to witness that manifesting itself now with my daughter, who's a freshman. She applied to all her colleges last year. She didn't let us look at one single application.
Oh, wow.
She didn't let me see one essay. I thought she was going to be a poli-sci major at a Catholic university, and she went in a completely different direction. And she's really happy and she's thriving. And it just, my heart is exploding with pride. And so I guess maybe there's an aspect of, at least she's listened to me. I said, follow your heart, do what you want to do. And we're here to cheer you on. Your dad and I fully support you.
That's beautiful. Let's talk more about, I guess, like also with women and what you are hoping that your legacy will be to the others coming up behind you and what you've taught them.
Well, my hope would be that there is the confidence with the women behind me, that are alongside me and then behind me, that there's a composition of women, there's a contribution of women, and then there's the compensation of women that achieves parity with men out there. So that frankly, we're not having these kinds of conversation, that we are equals, that we are deemed as, respected, and we are, teammates, truly equal parity. There will always be marginalized segments of the population. And if we can focus on lifting those up that need the opportunity to be able to have their contributions be recognized and their voices be heard, that's what we should be doing. But it would be wonderful that there isn't the need to really say, oh, where are we at? Because there's that composition, there's that contribution, and there's that compensation that they're receiving.
What do you want all of us other women to do to kind of help promote that cause? Because I think that you're right. That's where we need to be pushing forward to get that equality to our daughters, to our future generations.
Well, lead by example, suit up, show up, offer to give a hand, offer to be helpful or to be a mentor, to be involved. It's one thing to just say what you think, do this or do that, or wouldn't this be great? But it's actually walking alongside and giving a hand to those that are alongside and then those to come, and then inspiring, whether or not it's those a few years behind you or a generation behind, that we're all pulling each other along, and that it's a consistent message of, say as I say and do as I do.
Well, I think you definitely have shown up in every part of your life, and I'm very, very proud to have met someone like you that does promotes the cause over and over. So thank you. All right, so this is the fun section. It's the fire round.
All right.
Real simple questions, no wrong answer. Just first thing that comes to your mind. One word to describe your leadership style.
Empowering.
Like that. Morning ritual.
Sadly, I don't have an proper morning ritual. I am starting to meditate, but I need to exercise more. Instead of just getting up and getting on email and making lunches and breakfast and all that kind of stuff for the kids.
Oh, you're busy. You're busy. I play like a little game. There's a game I play on my app. I have to do it for like 30 minutes every morning. Something you always have in your bag.
For the last 2 years, I haven't been carrying a purse around. I carry my phone and that's it. So it's my car key, it's my credit card. So, but I would say if I had one, and if I have my briefcase, it's like an awesome lip gloss.
I have a friend that never brings a purse. That she always just has like the little, one of those ones, bandolier or something like that, that she carries just her phone in. I'm like, I've got too much stuff in my purse. It's always a mess. A song that always boosts your mood.
Wilson Phillips, released in 1990, Hold On. Definitely, it's a song that gives me encouragement and hope when there's difficult times. It was a song I shared with one of my very dear friends from high school, Kevin Rice, who's now a guardian angel in heaven. And it always inspires me and motivates me.
Oh, that's good. And it was also, wasn't it in the end of Bridesmaid? Wasn't that their song too?
Perhaps.
I think it was. I think it was.
All right, now I got to watch that movie. Okay.
Coffee, tea, or cocktails?
Coffee at dawn, tea at 2 p.m., and cocktails to collaborate and celebrate whenever available.
That sounds good. One app you cannot live without?
It would probably be the Cozy app, which is kind of a shared family calendar that has like to-do lists, project management, and it's a way that I can share and communicate with my whole family, like all the crazy schedule. But I would say another one that's kind of coming up and competing with Cozy is the Hallow app, which is, it's a Catholic Christian app. So there's actually meditation, rosary, calming Bible study or Bible stories. So my daughter Fallon is encouraged me to. She kind of assured that with me, and it's something that I think has been kind of grounding me and feeding me.
I like that. That's really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I used to have one of it was a book, but it was I don't know if you've ever seen Jesus Calling, and it's basically
Oh,
every single day of the week
okay.
is a different like kind of
Oh,
script and like moral
beautiful.
lesson. It's interesting.
Okay.
It's good. It gives you advice every day, which
Okay.
is nice.
I could always use that.
Best advice for a young woman entering aerospace.
There is a place for you. There's a place for you. Suit up, show up, and keep your mind open. There's a place for you.
Amazing. And a place that instantly brings you peace.
Oh. I would say the courtyard of my high school, Santa Margarita Catholic High School, listening to the bell towers chime. And my daughter actually went to my high school, and I think she would share that thought. It's a beautiful campus, and it is just a really soul nourishing place.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Okay, final question, and this one we ask everybody. Kathleen, what is your one truth? That one thing that keeps you going day in, day out?
My family. I've spoken about my daughters. They inspire me every day. My husband, he's a great dad. And the Verify family, being that it stems from a family business founded by my dad, my mom's still involved as well, that I am inspired every day to suit up and show up for each of them and to make sure that my home family, my extended family, my Verify family is happy, healthy, safe, and successful.
Kathleen, you inspire me every day. I mean, you are just such a light, and you have so much energy, and wow, everything you accomplish, and you just keep on going. And I think that you have a beautiful message that shares. And I'm sure that, like I said, you have created so many women that are going to be going further because of you.
Oh,
thank you so
Sonya.
much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to Spark Sessions. Until next time, keep the fire burning.